Hey guys, welcome back. It is week 5 of my series Fat Loss with Carbs. This week I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about an experience or a post or a comment that was made last week about my body composition. I shared this on my social media, on my story, and it was a comment that a follower, somebody that has all of our books, has been, I guess, a supporter for a really long time. And I really wanted to touch on, specifically this week, some of the mental health, I guess, prevalences, and really take a more in-depth look, I guess, at how our words can be incredibly powerful and can do a lot of harm. The post, actually, I'll just read it so that you have a bit of an idea of what it is I'm talking about. So, this particular gal, and I mean, she did come back and apologize. So, we had a conversation, but it kind of extends beyond that because there's so many things that could have been said that would be harmful to others. So she says to me, "Hey Holly, what happened to you? You gained so much weight," with her hands over her eyes, that little emoji with the monkey. That doesn't bother me too much. I think I thought about it for about maybe a minute and then I just kind of moved on. I was like, oh, wow, that's really insensitive. It kind of got me thinking a little bit about the prevalence of mental health conditions and the number of people that have potentially depression, anxiety, people that may have an eating disorder or that might be recovering from an eating disorder, and how that may negatively impact somebody's, I guess, progress, or potentially send them in a really negative direction. So let's say they had been working on eating a little bit more intuitively or learning to be okay at a slightly higher body fat percentage because they had suffered for years from, maybe anorexia, or they had been suffering from binge eating disorder and they needed to make some changes to their behavior in order to help with that healing process. I was having a look at some of the, studies that are available online for, prevalence of mental health. And I came across a systematic review. It was from 2019, April 2019. And this particular meta-analysis looked at about 94 studies that accurately diagnosed, I guess, the prevalence or different eating disorders. So of those 94 studies, the average population was about 1,000 through to maybe 5,000 participants. So we're looking at some pretty big numbers here. And what was incredibly astonishing to me was that around 8.5% of females that were diagnosed or that were diagnosed with an eating disorder had a lifetime eating disorder diagnosis. That in itself just blew my mind. So there are just so many people that once they have a diagnosis of one of the eating disorders, and whether that be anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, or binge eating disorder, it stays with them for a very, very long time, which is really upsetting. And I was thinking about this particular comment, and while I'm somebody that has, I guess, the experience to kind of dismiss that, thankfully I have education and knowledge on my side, and I'm somebody that knows how I need to go about the processes to build muscle. I understand and have accepted the fact that, okay, if I want to achieve my optimum, my maximum genetic potential as a natural athlete, and accrue as much muscle as I can in this period of time that I'm taking off, then this is what I have to do to achieve that. So many people don't have the experience. Maybe they're brand new to reverse dieting, or maybe they're recovering from an eating disorder, and this is a really, really touchy subject. If a comment like that was made to one of these people, who knows what damage could be done. And knowing the prevalence of eating disorders, it just made me really, really upset. It seems to be that for most people, there's a greater percentage of people that actually develop these eating disorders at a very young age. So teenagers, I think there was a percentage listed of maybe 10% have developed an eating disorder by the time they're like 15 years of age. And then by the age of 18%, it was like 75% of people in the studies had already developed an eating disorder by the age of 18. And then also going through some of the other systematic reviews that look at the influences over why people develop these eating disorders, a lot of it is to do with social media. So this particular one was a study that was looking at body image distortion influenced by media and slimming diet cultures. Basically, the more time somebody spends on social media, so they were specifically looking at Facebook in this study, the more time people spent making comparisons to themselves. Another thing that they mentioned was that the more time they spend on Facebook, the more attention to physical appearance people tend to focus on. Increasing amount of time spent on social media led to increases in negative feelings about somebody's self-image and their body image. That is awful. For me, I'm really somebody that tries to be transparent about the entire process. So yes, I'm going to post when I'm doing a competition. I'm going to show you like the process of getting really lean. But I'm not just sharing like the joys and the happy stuff. Like I'm telling you, like I'm trying to film videos towards the end of my last prep, and I can't even get words out. Like I was sitting on the chair crying because I couldn't think straight, because I was really having a hard time putting words together due to the caloric restriction and just how mentally exhausting that whole process is. As I'm going through like my off season and I'm trying to put on muscle, I really try to be transparent about that process too. So I'm always on my story. I'm still trying to film my workouts as often as I can. And you'll see a lot of social media influencers as they go through that cycle, not even putting anything up. It might be just words or like old photographs, or like they won't go on there at all because they have such low self-esteem or low body confidence because, they've put on a little bit of body fat. Yet maybe it was an intentional process. Like they just don't have that skill set to handle the changes. So I really want to make sure people understand like there is a process to doing all of this stuff. And some of it isn't that easy. But, I have been able to learn over the years of doing it. And I think develop the skills that you need to be confident, like at all sizes. I think the last thing that I want to talk about quickly before I go and have a look at my actual progress for this week are that people need to stop comparing themselves to other people for so many reasons. There are so many factors that can contribute to somebody's ability to be successful at a diet cycle. And that extends far beyond just somebody's ability to apply like cognitive restraint and, self-discipline. Like, yes, they are two really great attributes that people need to be able to stick to, a diet cycle, of course, and to be able to achieve a new body composition that they've been working to getting. But things like our environment impact us, our income and our, financial freedom. Believe it or not, like that can make somebody's life a whole lot more easy or a whole lot more difficult when it comes to getting into a stage lean physique. If you think about the requirements of getting into that kind of condition, yes, there are very specific nutritional requirements that are necessary for that. And that requires a lot of time in meal prepping and creating foods and recipes and things that are actually going to fit somebody's macros. Now, for most of us, we have to do that ourselves. But if you think about like as somebody's finances increase or their financial wealth is higher, they can have people doing that for them. They can say, here are my macros, make my meals, I'm going to pay for you to do that for me. So like that in itself is a huge stress relief. Like if somebody can do all that for you. So not everybody has that ability, first and foremost. There's also like, thinking about education and knowledge. Not everybody has like the skill set to know how to cook a really tasty meal that still fits their macros. So like knowledge makes an education. Those factors help somebody have an easier time when they are dieting. I also think it's really important to consider like your current lifestyle. Are you somebody that is single, or maybe you have a partner and it's just the two of you and you can really just focus on the things that you need to do and you have very few other responsibilities? If you are someone that has kids, that is a whole new level of responsibility. Thinking about how much time you then have available to do other stuff, like you are significantly at a disadvantage compared to someone that doesn't have kids and has very few responsibilities. And I think so many women, especially, obviously the prevalence of eating disorders is a lot lower in males, but it still exists. But for women especially, I think they're so hard on themselves, and they will compare to, you know, some of the top fitspos that don't have children. Like, that is their entire life. They do that all day, every day. Some people don't have a fitness related job. They have a normal 9-to-5 job, and they have children, and they have so many different responsibilities and roles that it's probably not reasonable to compare yourself to somebody in that position. So I think it is so important not to compare. Yeah, I guess relating it back to the post that was made or the comment about me on the weekend, it's really no skin off my back. It doesn't really bother me that much. I've gotten very good at, I guess, growing a thick skin, but so many people don't have the skills to be able to cope with that. And I think it's just really disappointing, to be honest. So I wanted to talk about it because it's been on my mind a little bit, and then I was definitely going into some of the literature about prevalence of eating disorders and stuff like that. And yeah, I just want people to realize that your words are really powerful, and you can do a lot of good with the things that you talk about. And for me, like, if I have any kind of a platform, like, I want to be able to do good with the things that I say. I don't want to be out there like criticizing or being negative. And I think so many people have like a little bit of extra confidence when they're, sitting behind their social media wall, putting opinions and comments, very insensitive comments out there. So just understand that you as an individual can have a huge impact on someone. So if you're going to say something that is positive. Something for me that I try to do every day is make a really nice comment to somebody that I have no idea who they are. So I will go on someone's social media page if they've sent me a DM, and I'll just make a nice comment, because that might change their day, as opposed to somebody like the individual that came onto my account and was like, "What happened to you? You got so big. Like, what the heck?" So yeah, I guess the moral of this week's update is be nice and have some consideration to what you say to people, because you can have a big say in, I guess, their overall, mental health. Let's move on and have a look at my weekly data. Okay, so I'm going to go in and take a look at my averages for this week. So it was Robert's, Lane's son's birthday. So we've had a couple of parties. We've got grandparents in town. We've been eating out quite a bit, and also just kind of eating whatever, having a few drinks. So here's my weekly average calories. Now it's telling me 1638 from Tuesday through to Monday, which is my 7-day, weekly check-in period. Now, I know it's actually higher than that because I did not log everything on Saturday. You can see there was a really low day. So my actual intakes were probably a little bit higher. So let's have a look now at my protein. So my weekly average protein intake was 143. There's a couple of low days in there, but again, I think based on my lack of tracking over the weekend, that may have been a sneaky bit higher too, and I guess it's the same for carbs and fats. So weekly carb intake average was 157. You can see there 204 on Friday. And then I've kind of reined it back in, I guess, over the weekend. So I did definitely have to do a lot of planning ahead on Sunday, especially because we've been out for dinner a couple of times. So I just really was mindful during the day, and then I had a bit more flexibility when we went out. Weekly fat average, 47 grams. So I have a feeling that's probably a little bit above what my target was. So we'll have a look at those in a minute. Now you can see here, this is my weekly weight log that I've got pulled up right at the moment. So you'll see here, I've only got 3 weight points. So there's one there at 72.9 on Tuesday, 73.1 on Monday, and then 72.8 this morning. Now, the reason that I haven't taken any weight points during the week is because I had my period for like 6 days this week. So I know that my weight is always artificially elevated. In fact, it normally goes up by about 1 kilo. So I just didn't weigh in on those days because there's kind of no point me taking them. I knew that I was being as consistent as I could with my dietary intakes. I was still training. So there wasn't going to be too much fluctuation in my weight due to terrible compliance. I still did a pretty good job at tracking most things. So there's no point me entering those into the Carb and Diet Coach when I know that they're going to be high anyway. So I just took my weight yesterday and this morning, and I'm really happy with that because I just assumed that I was really I was probably doing a terrible job and that my weight would have jumped right up, but it stayed pretty consistent. So I am super happy that I've maintained my weight this week. Okay, so now I'm going to go in and do my check-in for the week. So I'm going to hit the check-in button here, and it is going to take me through to the compliance question. So was I compliant to my calories? The range is 1557 to 1637. No, I was 1 calorie over based on my weekly averages. That was 1638, but like I said before, I know I went over. I didn't track everything that I ate, so I'm not compliant to my calories. So straight up, I know that I'm going to be marking no non-compliant this week, but we'll have a look at how I did in comparison to my protein, carbs, and fats. So 146 to 154 was the recommended protein range. I was just outside of that. I was a little low at 143. Carbohydrates, that is 146 to 154. I think I was at 156, and again, I know that I didn't track everything that I ate, so I'm outside that by just a smidge. And then my fat recommended range was 43 to 45. So I did hit compliance if I'd entered everything that I ate, but I didn't. So a little bit off this week. So now it's going to take me across to the page to provide my metrics. So my weight this morning was 72.8, and my body fat percentage hasn't changed. I'm still using my digital calipers. They were 18.8. And I am not going to mark yes to my menstrual cycle because it had ended. It ended on Saturday. Today's Tuesday. And I've taken my weight 2 times since then, and it's starting to trend back down. So I don't think that these weights that I've entered are still being affected by my cycle. So that's why I marked no, I'm not close to my menstrual cycle. Does everything look okay? Yes, that looks good. Doing some science, and yeah, sadly it looks like things didn't go as planned. I'm starting to get really used to this message, but I tell you what, I am pretty excited for next week because family members, everyone's going back home, and from now through to the end of the challenge, there is nothing that is going to be getting in the way of my compliance. So like I've been saying, this is a really unique fat loss phase for me in that I'm not dieting for a comp. So my goal is to be more flexible and to not be so harsh on myself if I want to take a little bit longer to do this. So it's been really nice. I had 1 or 2 moments, I guess, where I was like, I probably shouldn't have had that, piece of cake, or I shouldn't have had, the extra cookie. It was probably just a bit of a mindless eating, but I kind of sat down afterwards and thought about it at the end of the day. And I was like, you know what? No, I wasn't, didn't feel like I was binging. I felt like, I really enjoyed the taste of it. I'm going to have another one. And I just kind of moved on. And that's a really big step in the right direction for me, because normally that would be something that I'd ruminate on and I'd feel quite upset because I knew I had my comp just around the corner. So I'm definitely feeling so much better. My mental health is doing so much better this time around for this diet. And I am excited to be able to kind of block out the next 8 weeks or so and not have too many interruptions. So really good week for me. And I think that's probably about all. We've got Burns Steakhouse this evening, so that'll be fun. I have been there once before. I probably talked about it on here, but they have this amazing dessert room. So my strategy for today has been protein smoothie for the morning. Then I had a salad for lunch. So a huge big salad just with some chicken. I think we had, no, it was tenderloin, pork tenderloin from the grill. Lane's dad did some great barbecuing on the weekend. So we've got that. And that's really gonna leave up a heap of flexibility for dinner this evening. So I've had 2 protein meals so far, and we've got a very early dinner. It's at like 5:30. So my protein distribution is still going to be okay. And I will have most of my calories, so my 150 carb, 44 fats is my target at the moment. I'll still have basically all of that to use towards dessert this evening. But I think my strategy will be get the platter of all of the options and then just taste a few so that I can just enjoy a little bit of everything. So that is what I have looking forward to today. Anyway, that is all from me. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I'm interested to hear your thoughts about how you feel about, I guess, social media on the whole and how it affects your mindset. I know for me, there was a period where I really didn't want to be on social media because every time I looked at something, I just felt like there was so much pressure from, I guess, influencers that you needed to be a certain body composition. I was like, no, that's not okay. Or like they're only showing this side of things and that's not how it is all the time and that's not always normal. So if you have anything to comment about this, please do. I'm going to be going through and checking all your comments. I want to know how that impacts you when you see certain things or if you got a comment like that. So yeah. I look forward to hearing from you guys, and I will see you at my next week's update.